Welcome to the Survivor's Chair podcast, a podcast where we break down our stories and our trauma, understanding how they have impacted our career and our life. This is a place where we break free from shame, own our truth, and step into our power, one story at a time. Hi, I'm Kim, an adoptee, a former foster youth, hairstylist, salon owner, breast cancer, and complex trauma survivor. So join us, pull up a chair, in this no sugarcoating, no holding back, honest conversation about healing and success. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Survivor's Chair podcast. Today, I am joined by someone who embodies what it means to build strength through life's hardest moments. Theresa Mazzuco is the founder of Your Business Blueprint, where she helps new and early stage entrepreneurs turn their ideas into sustainable and scalable companies. But behind the systems and strategies, she shares her story of deep resilience. Theresa's journey into entrepreneurship began during a family crisis when she suddenly found herself having to run her father's business. That experience, paired with years of navigating health challenges and later caring for her father, has shaped how she leads, how she lives, and how she helps others today. Her mission isn't just about business, it's about helping people build foundations that can hold together when life falls apart. This is a conversation about what happens when life changes overnight, about the toll that stress and grief can take on our bodies, and that healing is always possible. So welcome, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Did I miss anything or did I get it?
No, you got it. You hit the nail on the head.
Perfect. So I would like to start from the beginning, even though I know it's going to be, a lot of information, but let's talk about the family crisis that happened and whether you were having health issues before that, if they came during that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, in 2017, my father had a massive heart attack. I was a healthy 27-year-old at the time. I didn't really have any health issues prior to that. I was sensitive to caffeine and some things here and there, but it wasn't anything serious. My serious health issues really started after my dad's heart attack. Within about 6 months, I had ended up in the hospital, and they told me that I had anxiety, and then by December of that same year, I was tired of going to the hospital and getting told that I just had anxiety, so I sat in the waiting room of my doctor's office between Christmas and New Year's for about 3 hours waiting to be seen, and found out that my blood pressure was in the I think it was the 160s over 120, and which is very bad. And they did an EKG immediately. They realized that my heart was in SVT, and then all of my autoimmune issues started from there.
When your dad had the heart attack, you were thrown into immediately having to run his business. Now, did you know about his business? Did you have any idea how to run a business? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't have any idea how to run a business. My dad had been a business owner my entire life. He owned a business in New York, an alarm company, and he sold it in 2004 and moved to Florida. His brother owned a similar company here in Florida. He went to work for it and eventually took it over himself. Um, I had helped him with the books here and there, but I worked in hospitality and I really enjoyed it. I was the beverage director and event coordinator for a local sports bar and restaurant up in about an hour north of Tampa, and I was very happy doing that. I'd help my dad out one day a week, and then out of nowhere, he had this massive heart attack. Technically, he died on his living room floor. He was resuscitated multiple times. When I got to the hospital, his secretary, thank God she was there, because if she hadn't been and hadn't tried to do like CPR or mouth to mouth on him, waiting for the EMTs, he wouldn't have survived. We are very grateful that she was there. But She got in touch with me, and by the time I made it to the hospital, everybody that we spoke to said he wasn't gonna make it. The initial, um, cardiologist said that he wouldn't even try to stent him. He had a widowmaker, essentially a very large, blood clot was blocking. I'm gonna say one of his major arteries, but I know somebody in cardiology is gonna, be like, "Oh, that's not 100% accurate," I'm not a doctor, but
No,
that's
you
my
won't worry about
my
the
take.
details.
Yeah. Um, so we spoke to the hospitalist, and I was the one that was like, "Okay, somebody's gotta, talk to the doctors and deal with this." So, we spoke to the hospitalist, we got another cardiologist who was willing to stent my dad. So they did that. He made it through, which was great. And they were like, okay, so we're not out of the woods now. At the time, there was this new technology that helped cool your body to 33 degrees Celsius. It it's for people that had brain damage or heart issues, so essentially your other organs don't necessarily need to function as much, and your body could just focus on healing your brain or your heart. So he was cooled for a few days, and he survived that part, but he was in a coma for quite a few weeks after that as well. So his business was his savings, his retirement plan, his livelihood. That's how he paid all of his bills. So we were unsure if he was going to make it through or not, but if he did make it through, we knew his business had to survive. One day my dad had a heart attack. The next day I was like, I guess I'm going to be running this business now. I had known a lot of the employees since I was a little girl, like 7 or 8 years old, and they definitely didn't look at me like their boss. Like I said, it was an alarm company, an electrical contracting business, construction industry. And I didn't have any clue what I was doing, and I didn't really have anybody to turn to.
That is a lot. Now, in the
It
meantime,
was.
you're navigating, the stress of what you're going through with your dad, which is grief, the unknown, the all of it. Like, how are you juggling all that? What are you
Um,
doing? Are
I'm
you
really good at I'm really good at compartmentalizing, pushing it down, my dad, fortunately, he did make it through all of that. Unfortunately, we did lose him earlier this year, but he lived another 8 years. But when he came out of the hospital, he wasn't the same person. He had suffered some brain damage. The day before he had his heart attack, he was my dad, the person that I could go to when I needed help. When he came out of the hospital, he was like an unruly 16-year-old child. So, could he take care of himself? Sure. We needed to remind him he needed to shower, brush his teeth, things like that. I mean, and he relearned those things eventually, but it was a very drastic change. I didn't realize until a few years ago, years into my own health journey, that I probably had to grieve losing who he was before. It's really hard to grieve someone that you're looking at. He looks the same, but he is not the same person. That was a journey that I had to go through all my own. I had explored different health modalities when I started experiencing my own health issues. Um, in different holistic settings, grief kept coming up, from the practitioners that I was working with, and I'm like, "Well, I haven't lost anybody. I don't know why, this keeps coming up."
Mhm.
Uh, and then eventually, I realized that I did have a lot of grief. Through that whole experience, I didn't come out the same person either.
Right. You can't,
So,
right? You can't. So
you
what
know
was it like? What was the first thing that you noticed in your body? The anxiety was there, but what was that first thing that made you think, "I have to go get more help. I need something different. I need something
Yeah,
other than
so
traditional medical."
Well, I guess there's a couple things that happened. The real like turning point when I turned to like a more holistic route was I had started having all these symptoms. I had, the experience when I went to the doctor. They gave me metoprolol for my heart issues. I took the metoprolol, my blood pressure dropped so low. I almost died. I ended up back in the hospital. So I came off of that. And then the next time I saw that primary care physician that had prescribed the metoprolol. She's like, "Okay, so how's it going on the metoprolol?" I'm like, "You didn't get the reports from the hospital, you know?" And she's like, "Okay, so did you see?" And she had recommended a cardiologist to me. My sister at the time was working. She's an echocardiologist, so I went to the doctor that she worked for, who was one of the best in Tampa. And I had told the primary care physician that at the time, and she got kind of annoyed that I didn't go to the doctor that she recommended. And then I also, being a healthy 27-year-old, and there being, weeks between these appointments, I had done a lot of my own research. Like, where is this coming from? What's happening to me? I had things written down like, could it be my thyroid? I was on a few rounds of minocycline for acne. It's an antibiotic, but it's also used for, in dermatology to clear up acne. And I had been on it for close to 9 months, which if you know anything about antibiotics, that is bad. At the time, probiotics weren't really mainstream. Doctors didn't tell you to take probiotics with antibiotics, things like that. So I had all these questions. What is going on? Could it be any of those things? I had this little list, and she took the list out of my hand, looked at it, and was like, "What's going on with you is idiopathic," and threw my little list in the garbage. Now, idiopathic means out of nowhere. Like, it's
Mhm.
not caused by anything, it just happened. And I was so angry that the person I was turning to for help wouldn't even listen to me or consider the things that I was saying. Now, through my health journey, I came to realize that that was pretty common in Western medicine. And I started listening to some podcasts, one specifically, The Doctor's Pharmacy by Dr. Mark Hyman. I'm a huge fan of that one. He is a functional medicine practitioner. He's been in the space since functional medicine kind of became a space to be in. And it's really like root cause medicine, trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, not just treating the symptoms, but trying to solve the actual problem. And it's not necessarily all about being holistic. It's just not a band-aid approach. You might need prescriptions if that's what's going to help, instead of just like, "Oh, you have a headache, take Advil." It's, why are you having the headache? Are you burning a candle and you're allergic to the scent, or something along those lines?
Or
Or,
dehydrated,
the
like,
wax or whatever. Yeah, yes,
as simple as
yes. Drink water.
dehydration.
Don't
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I really kind of went down this rabbit hole, and I started searching for practitioners in that space. And then I also realized how expensive that was, because none of those practitioners take traditional insurance. So I've spent a lot of money over the years. I've been diagnosed, misdiagnosed. I've seen every doctor under the sun, holistic, traditional. At one point, one of the things that I have is chronic Epstein-Barr. So all of my lymph nodes, specifically in my neck, are swollen, and they're over the normal, I guess, range, only slightly. And they stay that way, but I have to go to keep like an eye on it. I've been to infectious disease specialists. It took me a very long time to find out that outside of the Epstein-Barr, I also have PCOS. And that's what's causing most of my autoimmune symptoms. It affects your thyroid, it affects your blood sugar, it affects your hormones. So your cycle's always off. And I would gain weight and lose weight no matter what I did. I've always been into working out. So I've always ate healthy before finding functional medicine and holistic medicine. What I thought was healthy prior to that, not the same thing that I thought was healthy after, but really taking a more holistic approach. The first thing that I had done after that doctor crumbled up my little note and threw it in the garbage, I did like the Whole 30. Maybe it's food related. I cut out everything and started adding things back in. I started realizing I was sensitive to gluten. Soy was a trigger for me, sugar, dairy. And I had some issues with dairy here and there. I would go through these periods where I was lactose intolerant throughout my life. And then sometimes I would be fine, but it turns out that I can't have dairy. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And even through seeing holistic practitioners, it still took me a really long time um, to get answers. They had seen a practitioner in 2023 that did this entire holistic regimen. He was prescribing me 30 different supplements a day. I did all of these different holistic modalities. I spent close to $30,000 on it and I felt worse. And I was a little jaded after that because I felt very similarly to how I felt with traditional medicine. I felt like traditional medicine was pushing all of these prescriptions and these band-aids. I felt on the opposite side of the spectrum, they were doing the same thing, but it was supplements, not prescriptions. And I kind of took a break after that, and that was actually when I found, like, the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I had had somebody in a networking meeting, and I had been connected with her, and she was like she had told me her story, and she had gone through all of her own health issues, and she's like, "You know, if you don't mind me asking, when you started having your symptoms," because obviously we went down that rabbit hole, she was like, "Well, you know, if you don't mind me asking, do you have any trauma?" And I kind of laughed because, you know, I've been through a lot my entire life, but at that point, I'd gone through a lot in my adult life and specifically related to my dad and my businesses. And she's like, "Well, when did your health stuff start?" And she put it that way. And I thought about it. I was like, "Oh, 6 months ish after my dad's heart attack." She's like, "You should probably read The Body Keeps the Score."
Mhm. And that is my all-time favorite book. It's a life-altering book. think I've probably talked about it in every podcast I've done, but it is life-altering. I find it
Absolutely.
amazing how hard it is to put the dots together.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb moment.
Absolutely. And it did. It really clicked then. I started doing yoga. I started going to acupuncture and I started getting more relief. Unfortunately, you know, even acupuncture is expensive. They were recommending me go 3 times a week for acupuncture. And I'm like, if you don't take insurance, I can't take a loan out to get acupuncture. I had, like I mentioned, just spent $30,000 to think about all of the things I could have done with that money.
And it's all
You
part
know,
of
it
your
had
learning process, that's all.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big believer that, you know, everything happens for a reason. Even if it's a failure, it's a learning experience and you need those things in your life, you know, as part of your journey.
Absolutely. I don't see anything as a failure. I see everything as a
Yeah.
lesson. Like,
Yeah.
what do you get out of that? There's something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna touch on the medical piece, like, I've been on the, similar journey, looking for that person that's the perfect blend of traditional medicine
Yeah.
with a functional medicine approach has been really complicated. It is coming around. It is definitely coming around, like, my insurance covers acupuncture now. It's finding the practitioner that takes the insurance. My functional medicine nutritionist takes insurance because she wants to help more people, but it is a pain in the butt for them. That's the problem, and they just don't get paid what they should get
Yep.
paid 'cause, health insurance
Absolutely.
is crazy, but finding the people that will take the health insurance is just as complicated.
100% agree. I have an integrative PCP that I see now and I pay her monthly. It's like a subscription for her
Yeah, yeah,
services,
like a
but then everything
concierge kind of.
yeah, kind
Yeah,
of, and then everything else goes through my insurance. So blood work, if she prescribes anything, and it's $75 a month. So I have spent a lot more than that
yeah.
on other doctors.
I do feel like a lot of doctors are going in that direction because they want more
Absolutely.
freedom and have more time. So, looking back, what do you wish that you listened to sooner? What's something that you're like, "You know what? This was the biggest red flag of my health journey. If I had just paid attention to this one thing, it would have changed the amount of money I spent, the amount of time I spent." Tell me about that.
I guess there was the one moment with my PCP where
Yeah,
they took the note and threw it in the trash, and then conversely, the moment that I left the holistic treatment, that cost me so much money. And in both instances, I had these epiphanies, and more so after I left the practice that it was like an 8-week program. I didn't even make it through the 8 weeks. There was no follow-up. It was kind of just like this epiphany that it doesn't matter if they're traditional medicine, Western medicine, holistic medicine, functional medicine. You're always going to find people in healthcare that are in it for the money. They're not in it to help people, they're in it to make money. And just doing your own due diligence when it comes to that. But I guess my own body's check engine light was on for a while, and I am still a work in progress when it comes to that. I have this drive, very type A when it comes to certain things, and I want to power through, and I want to do all of the things, and I'm a lot better at listening to my body now and knowing that I cannot do that. Does it still happen? Absolutely, but I would say if I had an inkling sooner of like, "Hey, these things aren't normal." Like, I had started gaining weight out of nowhere, likely my thyroid at the time. That's also probably why I started having SVT, that or my blood sugar, because I don't really drink anymore. I do here and there. I worked in hospitality, so I drank a lot more at the time, and I was having a lot of symptoms after drinking, and it wasn't necessarily like a hangover, it was like heart palpitation. And they would get increasingly worse to the point where I ended up, in the hospital, and I felt like I was having almost like a heart attack. They were telling me it was anxiety, but in reality, it was neither.
The doctor's note, that would have been enough for me.
Yeah.
I do wanna touch on the supplement thing a little bit too, because that is a interesting industry, shall we say,
Yeah.
and I've also been thrown a million supplements, and until you do the tests and you know what you're deficient in, people are just at CVS buying whatever because it's whatever they say on Instagram or whatever they're seeing on YouTube. You talked about the probiotic a little bit, and what's so interesting is I was taking a probiotic and when I had all of the tests done, which was more extensive, the stomach test, which involves the poop
Yeah.
test, which is not fun, but,
Yeah.
it tells
No.
you a lot. But I
Yeah.
didn't need a probiotic. I needed a prebiotic instead. I had an overabundance. So I didn't need that, but I was taking it anyways. Sometimes I feel like when you slim down the supplements and you get to the basics, you can really figure out what you need. And if you're taking something you don't need, your body is going to respond. I think that's like the whole thing here is like your body responds with what it needs. It tells you. And if we don't listen to it or we're not in tune to it, it wreaks havoc. And I think that's the growth that
Absolutely.
I'm hearing from you is that you became more and more in tune with your body and what it needs and what's not working, what's working. Sometimes we get caught up at the shiny penny on Instagram or whatever. I mean, just my own cancer journey, I can see, I'm going to give you this formula and you're never going to have cancer again. You don't even need to get treatment. All you need to do is, drink this celery juice 16 times a day and you're going to be cured. And
Yeah.
when you're going through a health problem, you're grasping at anything to feel better, anything,
Yeah.
like make it go away, whatever it is. And people are good at selling and marketing, and that goes back to, kind of, I wanna say, like, kind of the skinny times when everybody could take the
The
Dexatrim
fads.
and get skinny,
Yeah.
which is speed, and everybody was taking speed and
Yeah.
losing weight, and, it's just crazy.
I feel like or a lot of that is going on right now with like the Ozempic trends as well. I absolutely believe that some people need it, and it's a great tool for some people.
Full disclosure, I am taking Zepbound, and I have since April,
Yeah.
but it's not for weight loss. It's
Yeah.
for inflammation, it's for heart
Absolutely.
health, especially after
Yeah.
cancer treatment. So I think they're learning what the peptides are gonna do for people in
Yeah.
the long run. I think they are really gonna help 'cause the Herceptin that I was on for my cancer causes heart damage, and they say it comes back afterwards when you're in menopause and you lose your estrogen. It's been a game changer for me for inflammation, something I couldn't shake. I was like a 90-year-old woman thanks
Yeah.
to chemo and all that and menopause. It was like like a tornado hit at the same time. All right. So let's talk about your business a little bit. So what
Yeah.
led you to start your business blueprint? So tell us a little bit about what it is, what you do, and What brought you to that place to start that?
Yeah, so I never really planned on starting this business. I mean, coincidentally, I never planned on being an entrepreneur in general,
You were thrown
but
right into that.
I was, yeah, I was. So I help new and early stage entrepreneurs get their businesses off the ground. I have this 10-step framework that I walk through with all of my clients. And it's all about the foundations and strategies that new businesses or even businesses that have been in business for a little while need to have in place in order to just have a sustainable business, but also if they're interested in scaling, and not all business owners want to scale. Some people just want to have a small business that supports them, that gives them the flexibility that they want, and that's it. But if your business isn't even doing that, then what's the point? So I walk people through the 10-step framework that I have. I call it the Start Smart framework. So essentially, most people get into business because they're passionate about something, not necessarily because they know how to run a business. And that's the piece that I help them with. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the thing that they're building the business around. It's building the actual business itself.
And what brought you to start that type of business? Because as a salon owner, that's one of the things that I see a lot in my industry is everybody's so passionate about doing hair that they want to start their own
Yeah.
business, but then they get into the business part. And I loved the business side, but it
Yeah.
was a learning curve.
Yeah. I didn't have help when I got started. And while I was running my dad's business, had officially became my own, I was really missing hospitality. So I started a wine tasting and charcuterie business.
Fun.
And then I started multiple other businesses post selling that business and closing my charcuterie company. And I was approached by a friend that wanted me to come do marketing for their software company. And I was like, I don't necessarily care about the money. I care more about the flexibility. I want to be my own boss, blah, blah. They're like, you'll have it. Just come work with us for a little bit and see. I did that. I had closed my businesses at the time. I had five by that point, and I closed them. I went to go work for the software company, and it was a startup. So startup life is very similar to new business life. And I worked with friends, and between my friends and my fiance, I had been told a few times I'm really knowledgeable about all of these things having to do with getting businesses started. Maybe that should be what I do. Because I was really wanting to get back into like corporate event industry. The theme kept coming up. I kept having people reach out to me with questions when they were getting their businesses started. And it got to the point where my older sister started her business early in 2024, and she had all of the questions. I was on the phone with her all the time. Around the same time, my personal trainer, every time I would see her, she was coaching me on working out, and I was coaching her on business strategy. And around that time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm essentially coaching these people. I absolutely loved doing it. You ask me a question about getting a business started or certain strategies around running a business, and you can't get me to shut up after. I'm like, "Oh, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Oh, you could do this, you could do that." And we had taken some time off. We were about to get on a boat. And my biggest thing against wanting to start a coaching business for new businesses was, how am I going to make money? People don't have any money when they start businesses. And I had this idea. The kind of 10-step framework came to me, and I'm like, I could do this. It doesn't have to be all one-on-one coaching. Obviously, I do have those packages, but when I got started, I created downloadable digital guides, low cost on each of the 10 steps so people could buy one if they need it. I give discounts on buying all of them. I've developed some courses. Um, and I do a lot of workshops and things like that. So really low ticket offers that people could get the same information at a lower cost. And then obviously I do have my larger coaching packages. I have standard like time based, so like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 24-week packages. And then I have ones that focus more on pricing strategy or an operations audit and overhaul package more for the people that did get started. They're approaching the 2 or 3 year mark, and they're not sustained. They're working 60 hours a week. They're like, I can't keep doing this and I'm not making enough money. How can I grow anymore? Um, or the ones that are wanting to scale, they're a similar position and they just can't do it. So like I said, it kind of just came to me. We rented a boat, my fiance and I, and we were about to go out and I had the idea and I told him, and that's all I talked about the entire way we were on our way out. And he's like, "Okay, so you're starting a business?" "Yeah, I guess I'm starting a business." I reached out to 2 of my friends that were entrepreneurs that specialized in a standard operating procedure, and, the other one was, like, she does a couple different things. Now she focuses more on, like, visibility coaching, but she's and, like, ADHD and entrepreneurship, and I reached out to both of them, and I was like, "Hey, I have this idea. I'm on a boat right now, but we need to get together next week." And your business blueprint was born. I spent the next what was supposed to be 3 months, but ended up being 6 months getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had another health flare, in September of last year. My dad, he had got diagnosed with cancer a few years prior. We were on this roller coaster with him, and I was burning the candle at both ends, working 40 hours in my job. I was so excited about the idea. I was working nights and through the weekend trying to
Yeah.
get the business started, and ended up having, some GI issues. I had a colitis flare up. Went to the hospital thinking had appendicitis, and it wasn't. And then shortly after that, we found out my dad's tumor was back. He was terminal. We had to put him in hospice. It took a little bit more time to get the business started than I had anticipated originally. I actually had started seeing clients around the same time we had put my dad in hospice.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, it was tough. It was a lot, but a lot of my clients were like, "You don't have to do this right now." But seeing my clients is what filled me up and kept me
yeah.
going. It's a double-edged sword sometimes. Work is a lot of stress, but if you love what you do, it could also be really fulfilling.
Yeah, and I think the important lesson there was you listened to your body probably a lot quicker than you would have,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
years before. I do think the other part of listening to you is that you said, "I didn't wanna be an entrepreneur. I had no intentions of being an entrepreneur," but that's all you've been is an entrepreneur, which I I think is awesome, and you clearly have a passion for it, which is
Yeah.
what makes a great entrepreneur. So, if somebody right now was grappling with stress and grief or a hard time in their life, what little piece of information would you give them right now?
Just breathe. Make
Mm.
sure you're taking time for yourself. Everything can wait, even the things that you think have to get done today, don't. And people understand. My clients were literally telling me I have a client who's a friend of mine. She lost both of her parents, and she was like, "I'm telling you, take the time, spend it with your dad. I can wait. All your other clients can wait." My dad lived about an hour north of where I live now, and I was driving up to see him 3 or 4 times a week while he was on hospice. I would go up there, I would work from his house, and my dad, entrepreneur, most of my life, I would go there, I would take, like, client calls, I would work on stuff, and I was still working at the software company. You know, I would take my calls for the software company. And I'd be sitting at the table with him, and he'd be, like, staring and drinking his coffee and listening. He loved it, and to be honest, that experience towards the end of his life was helpful for me, to be honest. We got to share a lot of the early steps of my business. My sister was starting her business at the time, so he would ask me about her business. Obviously, it was sad.
Uh-huh.
You know, those are moments that I definitely cherish. And I guess it would be, take a break if you need it, and if you're doing something you love, that is filling you up, trying to keep some connection to it is okay too. Do what feels best for you in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. What a journey, my friend.
Yeah, it's been a ride, no short of a bump, more like a roller coaster versus little speed bumps. I'm just chugging uphill really hard trying to get up there, and then all of a sudden I hit it, and it's like,
Yeah, and you're flying. You can't even
and
catch
I'm
your breath.
flying. Yeah. Yep.
So, how can people work with you? Where can they find you?
So my website is yourbusinessblueprint.biz, and then my business profile is on just about every platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, at the same name. So at Your Business Blueprint. I post mostly from my own social media. So at Tre, build businesses. And then you can find me same across platforms. Search my name, Theresa Mazzuco, and you'll find me somewhere.
I'm just going to say thank you so much for coming on here and
Yeah.
sharing your story with everybody. And I hope everybody listening takes a breath, realizing that there's so much that is important in life other than pushing through business, and to listen to your body and all of those things.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
thank you
And
for being
if it's
here.
you're welcome. You're welcome. If it's aligned, it'll happen.
I agree 100%. 100%. And I want to thank all the listeners for listening today. And we will see you next time on the Survivor's Chair. Thank you for tuning into the Survivor's Chair podcast. You can head over to my website, www.kimrussellpro.com. That's KIMRUSSELLPRO.com. You can catch up on my blogs. Follow me on social, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or TikTok. All the links will be in the show notes, and I'll see you next time in the Survivor's Chair.